warm welcome to this special episode of ETGovernment's Good Governance and Better Security Leadership Series. My name is Anoop Verma. For this episode, we are having two eminent guests. Johnny G. Melikyan, he is the Head of Department, Public Relations and Information Center SNCO at Govt of Armenia, and Arunansh B. Goswami. He is an advocate, Supreme Court of India, and an expert, Orbeli Center, Govt of Armenia. The topic of today's conversation is the geopolitical situation in the Indian subcontinent and the South Caucasus region, and the possibilities for economic, military, and geopolitical cooperation between India and Armenia. Johnny and Arunansh will also provide their insights on the historical and cultural connections between the two countries. Welcome, Johnny and Arunansh.
Good day.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
So first, I'll come to Arunansh. How do you view the historical and cultural connections between India and Armenia?
So, sir, this question is very important for the viewers to understand because when we talk about diplomacy, when we talk about geopolitics, we need to understand that it is based on centuries of civilizational connect, especially in case of India and Armenia. When we talk about Armenians, we know that they have been very good merchants. They have moved around the world, settled in different parts of the world, and especially the merchants from New Julfa in what is now Isfahan area of Iran, and helped in a form of globalization before the modern globalization took place. So, in the case of India, we find that when we read the history of India and South Caucasus, we find that there used to be a small settlement of Indians and Hindu princes from what is now Kannauj, what used to be Kanya-Kubja before, in the area of Armenia, that's South Caucasus region. And the kings there provided people from India, the Hindu princes from India, to settle over there and worship their gods. And later, these the community that settled over there became a part of the larger Armenian population. Similarly, we find that many Armenians lived in India during the medieval time also. Mirza Zulkarnain we come across. He was known as the pillar of Christianity in India. Many of these Armenians took Persian names because of the Farsi being the lingua franca in South Asia during that time period. And we also find that later, people like Haku Petrosyan, or used to be called Jacob Petrus, played a very important role in the expansion of the power of Marathas in 18th century and 19th century. You had, various people, other people. For instance, there was this person, Mr. Baglarian, who played Joseph Beglar, he played a very important role in the preservation of different archaeological sites in India, especially Bodh Gaya in Bihar. And in Madras, it is said that the idea of Armenian nationalism emerged from what is now Madras, because as I said, that Armenians from historically, we say from time immemorial, they have had a very big diaspora. They have been a diaspora community, and it has the diaspora has played a very important role in the growth and development of the Armenian motherland, and therefore the Indian Armenian diaspora also did the same and played a very important role. So maybe the printing press in Madras, the Azdarar newspaper, maybe the constitution. So Indian subcontinent, South Asia, and Madras had played a very important role in the development of Armenian nationalism. Same goes with Calcutta. Like people like, as I mentioned, Haku Petrosyan played a very important role in supporting philanthropic organizations in places like Calcutta. Various scholars lived in India, Calcutta specifically, Madras. Surat was very important. But as I said, the expanse of the influence of the Armenians in India was very prominent, even in central India, North India, places which are not generally associated with merchants who come and settled on the coast. So this relationship is very civilizational. It is very old. It is not something which is based on just modern geopolitical considerations.
From Johnny, I'd like to know about the geopolitical synergy that is building between India and Armenia. I think in 2002, they also started some kind of military cooperation. So what is the reason for that?
Thank you very much. Thank you for invitation to this talk. Probably I would like to start from the stating that historically Arunansh said about our deep ties, so deep sympathy between our nations. So after the independence, so our governments were having good relations, but I would say that especially after 44-day war in 2020, and after that, as the geopolitical situation in our region and more broader was going more complicated. So I think New Delhi and Yerevan understood that there is many common threats, and in this case, it should be noted that during the last years, maybe one decade, it was already a process of formulation of this triangle X between Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Pakistan. So in this case, I would say that it was extra adjustment to these relations, and Yerevan started to look at India, and India also tried to be a new player in our region. So since that period, we witness this process of military technique cooperation. So there are a lot of things in Armenian and Indian media regarding to this cooperation. We have very active diplomatic relations, interstate connections. So recently, head of National Assembly, president of our Armenian National Assembly visited India with an official visit. So he was received by the top leaders of India. So last time during the Raisina dialogue, Armenian foreign minister was in India. So I guess this year he also already got his invitation to participate there. So our embassies in Yerevan, Indian embassy in Yerevan and Armenian embassy in New Delhi are actively working to enlarge these relations, to put more economy inside, because we understand that military technique cooperation is not enough. And even here we have many things to do, from legislation to many other aspects of our cooperation. So we need maybe some common factories, maybe some companies which will work on Armenian soil, which will provide more assistance to this process, military drills, some Indians who will be in Yerevan, in Armenia, who will work with our officers how to use Indian weapons, which we get or we will get in a near future. So here we all also understand that not only geopolitics matters, but also geoeconomics. And here there is another issue which is crucial also for India. So India wants to use this north-south transport corridor, and in this case to use the roads for its trade via Iran, Persian Gulf, Iran, our region to Europe. So here, if before Gaza crisis, it was another project which was realizing in the process of realization from that format which was created at that period, including Israel, India, and other states. So since this Gaza crisis started and this conflict is still ongoing on, this region, our region, is becoming more or less one of that possible roads for Indian goods to transport to Europe more easier and faster. But here I should mention that we need peace and stability in our region, which, as we see from the recent developments and statements by Azerbaijani leader, that Baku is not ready for this kind of peace, and international partners who are interested in such a project, and it's not only India, but other actors also should push somehow on Azerbaijan not to allow Azerbaijan leadership, Aliyev regime, to not allow this region to be opened for external actors, for actors who are interested using this region as a road, as a crossroads to transport goods and to develop infrastructure. So in this case, this kind of approaches from geopolitics to geoeconomics brought us to look at each other, I mean India and Armenia, and start to cooperate in different spheres and sectors. And here it's interesting that it's not only a bilateral, and maybe in the future we will have also other formats of cooperation, including not only regional countries like Georgia, but also France, Iran, Greece, and other countries to gain from this cooperation, to invest in regional peace and stability.
I think the geopolitics is quite getting quite complicated. The way you have explained it, I think everyone needs peace and stability in their region. So, now, Arunansh, you talked about gave the historical perspective of how the relations between the two countries are. Now, the South Caucasus region is, I mean, it has become a sort of power game between superpowers. So, what is the role that US and Russia are playing there in the current
See,
time?
yes, Vermaji, it's a very important question. If you see the in the Organization of for Security and Cooperation in Europe, after the first Nagorno-Karabakh war, the conflicts that were taking place from 1988 to 1994, the ceasefire took place. The Minsk group played an important role, and in the Minsk group, you had the three co-chairs, which is the United States, the France, and Russia, who played an important role in the ceasefire. There was also the Madrid principles came up in 2007 of solving the Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh conflict, including which emphasized on the fact, which I'll explain later about, connectivity between what is Nagorno-Karabakh and mainland Armenia, which is called the Lachin Corridor, which was blocked by Azerbaijan after the 2020 conflict later. So basically, we see that great powers are always ready to interfere in different theaters of war wherever there's a conflict. Because if you will not be a great power, so to say, you'll be a regional power if you are dominating in your own region. If you want to be a global power, then you have to have say in different parts of the globe, from Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, to North Africa, to East Asia, all the way to Indo-Pacific and South Caucasus. All areas are important. And as I said, South Caucasus is important because it connects the Orient with the Occident, the East with the West. So this area, having traveled in this entire belt of Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia, I've seen the way in which the mingling of the cultures of the East and the West takes place in this particular area. And it's very important for these powers. For instance, Russia, after all, the autonomous oblast of Nagorno-Karabakh was created during the time of Joseph Stalin in 1923. He was the Commissar of Nationalities back then, in which the idea is something very similar to the divide and rule principle that British used to occupy in South Asia. If I have to use an analogy, I'll compare Joseph Stalin's policy about creating Nagorno-Karabakh within the majority, a 95% ethnic Armenian enclave within the larger Azerbaijani territory, very similar to what Cyril Radcliffe did in South Asia by creating a line and dividing India and Pakistan in a way that several territories where Hindus were living went to Pakistan, and many territories where Muslims, when the majority, came to India. And you saw what kind of violence took place when the population exchange took place after that. So the divide and rule policy, which we saw implemented by the British, used by the British in India, it was very similar to what the Soviets did when the Soviet Union was there, the USSR was there. Later, we see, when the Soviet Union failed, again, there was this dispute between Azerbaijan and Armenia about, who should control Artsakh or Nagorno-Karabakh. The idea of self-determination comes into play as a legal principle that people, almost 95% people being ethnic Armenians. So where they want to go? It said in 1988 they voted to be a part of Armenia, and then the conflict started. And we see that later also, when the ceasefire took place, there was this idea that the enclave, the autonomous oblast of Nagorno-Karabakh, was militarily, economically, and politically dependent on what is now mainland Armenia. Later, we see that United States initially was not very interested in this entire region of South Caucasus. Russia always felt that it's my backyard, very similar to how Russia views Eastern Europe, may it be Belarus, may it be Ukraine, may it be other areas like Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. Russia believes in this idea that this is my backyard and nobody should interfere in it. If they interfere, or if I have to give a South Asian example, then I would say that when China interferes with something in Sri Lanka or China interferes with something in Nepal, India feels bad about it, because we feel that this is a larger South Asian region where, in a way, India is the bigger partner and India has security and national interest stakes there. And very similar situation is happening in South Caucasus, where Russia feels that this is my backyard, but United States also want to come in. Now China is also interested, because after the Ukraine war, initially Chinese goods used to go via Russia, Eastern Europe, all the way to Western Europe and other parts. But that China is also planning to, through the help of Azerbaijan, to reach West Asia and later Europe, the kind of a middle corridor. And then the so-called argument of Azerbaijan about the Zangezur corridor comes in, that this will not just help, opening of the so-called Zangezur corridor will not just help Azerbaijan, but it will also help China, it will also help other countries to trade. Because of the conflict in Ukraine, that area, that route of trade is in a way blocked, so you go via this route. But this argument is kind of hollow, because if we see what the leadership of Armenia has come up with, the whole idea of crossroads of peace, which is a brilliant idea, that the civilizational goal of Armenia has always been of being a link between the East and the West from the time of Tigranes the Great. That it was a big empire connecting Caspian all the way to the Mediterranean, and there were trade happening. There were trade routes going from East and the West. Similarly, even now, Armenia will open itself. It will allow trade, but respecting national territory, sovereignty, that should not be compromised with. I mean, on the one side, when the blockade of your Lachin corridor was done, it was kind of a humanitarian link between what is your Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia. And we saw in April 23rd, 2023, it was a checkpoint was opened there by Azerbaijan, so as to check, according to them, that arms and ammunitions are coming inside. And later the blockade in December 2023, and later we see the military action against the so-called anti-terrorism operation in that area and the occupation of Nagorno-Karabakh. And we see how the exodus took place of the people. And all this what happened, it in a way opened up the eyes of big powers like United States, people sitting back even in South Asia like India, that look what is happening in South Caucasus. Russia is not a reliable, probably in that particular area in South Caucasus, is not anymore powerful enough to prevent this conflict. I mean, there were Russian peacekeepers there. They were not able properly able to do their job. And it is also believed that Azerbaijan from the very beginning had a very diversified foreign policy. And being energy rich with great energy resources, it was able to utilize its heft against Armenia, which is a landlocked country, and in a way is devoid of the resources that Azerbaijan has, access to the Caspian Sea, energy resources. And this is something which even Russia wants. This is something which other nations also want. So the attitude that Russia showed in South Caucasus, in a way, Armenia that the time has come to diversify the foreign policy and look for other partners, maybe tilt toward the United States. Like, for instance, Armenia never voted against Russia or in favor of Georgia when it came to, Abkhazia and the South Ossetian issue, the return of people there. But recently we saw a few years back that Armenia voted in favor of Georgia, which can be seen in a way, even though, I mean, when it comes to Georgia voting in favor of Armenia, Georgia has voted many times in favor of Azerbaijan when it comes to territorial integrity issues. So Armenia has taken a step forward to even open up and show a kind of attitude or openness with its neighbors. That, so very similar to what Atal Bihari Vajpayee used to talk about in South Asia, that it's very difficult to change you can change your friends, but you cannot change your neighbors. So Armenia is also understanding that and may be crossroads of peace, may be opening up to Georgia a little more and trying to find out how balancing between the interests of different powers here. And United States has this understanding after the Ukraine crisis that this whole notion of the Russian backyard doesn't hold water. There has to come a time that United States need to interfere even in areas where it has to show that it is really a global power. Otherwise, the influence of United States has seen, if you see over the past few years, maybe the Afghanistan crisis. Before that, during Henry Kissinger's time, we saw the Cambodian, Vietnamese crisis. Then now the few years back, the Afghan crisis. Now the Syrian crisis. You see that the trust of the partners, United States partners, over United States in a way deteriorating. And it is important for United States to show that, I'm a very important player in this particular region. And that is why this conflict is taking place. And India is also trying to enter this area and show that we, in fact, have been a reliable partner. Check our history and you'll find it.
Okay. Now, I'll come to Johnny. Arunansh mentioned the crossroads of the peace project. So I want your overview on how this project was conceived. What are its key achievements so far, and what are your future expectations from this project?
Thank you very much. As Arunansh mentioned, as far as after 2020 war and parallel to this negotiation process, Azerbaijan started to use many terms which already show that they are thinking about another escalation, another occupation of Armenian extra territories. So at this moment, they occupied more than 200 square kilometers of Armenian sovereign territory, which are recognized by international law. As far as Arunansh said, at that period, when it was Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh, and Armenians were living there with Russian peacekeeping forces, etc. It was Lachin corridor, and they were trying to get another corridor for themselves to connect to Nakhichevan Autonomous Republic, which is exclave, Azerbaijani exclave. But as far as in 23, it was this exodus, ethnic cleansing of Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, and more than 130,000 Armenians had to leave their motherland, historical, where their cemeteries, churches, ancient churches still are there, and some of them are already ruined. But after that situation changed, and they periodically were announcing so-called Zangezur corridors issue, and trying to push Armenia to give them extraterritorial road. So maybe our list auditory who is good with the history will remember so-called Danzig corridor issue during the before Second World War, which was basis for Adolf Hitler to start war and to occupy Poland. So in this case, they are doing probably the same. Now appealing Armenia that Armenia, by Prime Minister's signature under the November 9th trilateral statement, was signed with presidents of Russia and Azerbaijan, that it was an obligation which Armenia took to give roads to Azerbaijan to enter to Nakhichevan, etc. And in this case, after this last 2 years, many things geopolitically changed, and now they are trying to push us to give them that kind of road. And to counter this idea, official Yerevan prepared, Armenian government prepared this initiative, so Crossroads of Peace initiative, which is the strongest answer to Azerbaijani attempts to get extraterritorial road. So the meaning of this project is that Armenia is ready to open borders with neighboring Azerbaijan and Turkey. Probably from the side of Armenia, border with Turkey always was opened. It was closed by Ankara 3 decades ago, and still they are keeping us under the blockade. But in the case when Azerbaijan and Turkey will decide and we will open borders, Yerevan said that I take obligations to renovate, to build, to prepare infrastructure on my territory, allowing neighbors to use my infrastructures, Armenian infrastructures, for trade, for transportation, etc., for people-to-people contacts. In this case, railroad and road to Nakhichevan from Azerbaijan. And in this case, it was stated that these roads probably should be under infrastructures, including roads, railways, airways, pipelines, cables, should operate under the sovereignty of jurisdiction of Armenia. So as far as it's they are on Armenian territory, and the same should be for Armenia or from other parts of our borders. So here we don't see any response to it. And a couple of days ago, President of Azerbaijan already said that Armenia is a barrier between Azerbaijan and Turkey. So, and he also, and it was probably very dangerous statement, said that Armenian state, I'm quoting, is fascist state. And if government or leadership in Armenia will not change the political ideology of Armenia, it's a citation from Aliyev, he will forcefully do this. So this is showing that even these kind of approaches, which are positive, and even responding to Aliyev's statements, official Yerevan said that we are ready for peace, and many things which are impossible now, we can discuss and find solutions diplomatically. And Yerevan stated once again that we are ready to sign this document which will create so-called peace treaty. And as you know, from 17 articles, 15 are already discussed and agreed, and 2 are remaining. And Yerevan said, even we are ready to sign documents putting there these 15 articles which are agreed already. But Azerbaijani side is saying that until 17 of them will not agree, nothing is accounted agreed. So there is also 2 preconditions to change Armenian constitution, etc. So, which is showing that there is no will to have stability, to have prosperity in this region. And Aliyev is using this period. So firstly, it was in 2020 when it was COVID period, and every country and big players were working on the problems which were created by COVID economically, etc. They used the momentum at that period and started this aggression and war. And now it's an extra period, another period when there is a conflict in Middle East. It will be new president in White House. Some political problems in EU, inside key countries. So nobody cares about the situation in this region. So Russia is in war with Ukraine, etc. So and Turkey is backing Azerbaijan. So maybe he sees another extra opportunity to cut corridor, to cut some territories from Armenia, and to have this land road to Nakhichevan and then Turkey, and this will mean that the situation in the region will be more complicated. Geopolitics will change. So let's hope, because when Arunansh was saying about these players in this region, so now each of our country is trying to understand what kind of policy will have Washington new administration regarding to post-Soviet space. So I will not say South Caucasus because it's too small for US administration, more or less policy on these kind of countries. Georgia is trying to balance now. Yerevan is still balancing, so being part of Eurasian Union, CSTO, Yerevan is trying to deepen its relations with West, with European Union. Even recently, government approved law, so agreed on discussion of the law on starting the process of integration into EU. So it will be something like creation parallel to SEPA agreement, which we have with European Union to new roadmap with some law amendments, some reforms, etc., which will allow us to be closer to EU, etc. But many things are connected to the future policy of Donald Trump. So who will be the main adversary to him? So it will be China, it will be Russia, it will be other country. So how he will behave in the relations with Iran, because Iran, it's southern neighbor. It's a country which we have long history, connections. They are also assisting Armenia's territorial integrity. So if something will happen and Israel will attack via Azerbaijan and indirectly Iran, it will create another problem for Armenia, and it will allow Aliyev maybe to use this momentum to attack Armenia. So that's why until January 20 and during this upcoming months, Yerevan, Tbilisi, and Baku and other capitals will be trying to understand what Trump's administration will prioritize, what will be their top 10 priorities, how they will behave with countries like us, and what to prepare. Yes, plan Bs for each of scenarios, which is very crucial for us. And here we'll see, yes, or we'll have another, yes, war, and maybe Third World War, because we already know that there are some rumors against on Greenland, on Canada. So what will be the future of these territories and countries? So what will be in the European continent? So many things will be linked to these decisions, to this kind of policy. And here, from India to Armenia, each of countries on the formal Silk Road and former so on these trade roads will decide our plan B is what to do if we will have negative scenarios. So, but we should also continue to working on the main scenario, positive scenarios, and to be prepared for new infrastructures, for new projects which will allow us to develop.
So that's a very good summary of the concerns and the issues that the neighborhood faces. I think it's hard to predict the policies of Donald Trump, but I don't think he'll go into Canada or Greenland. I think that's just a sign of his sense of humor. We could take it to that. No, Armenia is a country with a very ancient culture. Geopolitically and economically, the country has great potential and it is already playing a big role. So, Arnash, I would like to ask from you, why is Pakistan the only country that does not recognize such an important state as Armenia?
If I have to answer that question, I will start by the fact that what is the foundational ideology of Pakistan? So when we, go through several books about what Pakistan is, like I mean, there is a book called Pakistan Army's Way of War by C. Christine Fair. There are many books which talk about the idea that, Pakistan Army believes, and Pakistan itself, because it being a very much like a garrison state, believes in the idea that it is fighting a war for the Ummah. Like it is at the forefront of the global Islamic community. And wherever there is a trouble somewhere, which according to Pakistan is a trouble, then Pakistan has to interfere. That has been the case with their successive administrations. If you see in 2010, Sayyid Athar Ali went in Azerbaijan and talked about defense cooperation. Then Mamnoon Hussein mentioned to the Azeris, Mamnoon Hussein, the former president of Pakistan, that after Turkey and Romania, the third country to recognize Azerbaijani independence was Pakistan, and we are the only country, proudly the only country that doesn't recognize Armenia because it is a so-called fascist state, as Aliyev also points out now and then. The reason is two. One is ideological, and the second is practical, geopolitical, geoeconomical. The first is this, that Pakistan believes that when it comes to ideology, like I said, that it has to be a part of the global Islamic community and protect whichever country has any problem within this global Islamic community, maybe Algeria, maybe Azerbaijan. And the idea that Pakistan itself has its origins from the Khilafat movement, the Caliphate movement that happened before Indian independence, and in fact, in which several Hindu leaders like Mahatma Gandhi also participated and led. But in fact, it became a kind of a movement which also helped in the formation of the identity of Pakistan as a nation, a Muslim nation in South Asia. So this idea, this Banhami in the Khilafat movement, where the Khalifa sitting in Turkey, where in Constantinople becomes very important for South Asian Muslim country, this psyche has not gone from Pakistan still. For them, still the idea that the Turks were the warriors who went and protected the global ummah, they protected the Islamic international community. For them, the idea that Ottoman Empire was an empire that was sent by God to unite the entire Islamic community, at least the Sunni Muslim community. And what happened was the British, the Western powers, Lawrence of Arabia, and other people, what they brought in Middle East was the idea of nationalism, which is incongruent, which is against the ideas of global Islamic community. So when we read about this whole idea that this nationalism is something which is against the unity of the Islamic Ummah, and therefore Ottoman Empire was something which is very important still for the Pakistani population, common population. That is the reason that the Turkish series that was produced by Mehmet Bozdag, like the Kurulus Osman and the Ernest Arthurgul, became so popular in Pakistan, and in fact PTV signed MOUs with the broadcasters in Turkey to send all this information to Pakistan. Even people from Turkish history like Abdul Hamid Khan, who are considered seen in a very bad light when it comes to the history of Christianity and Christian people, especially Armenians, they are celebrated in Pakistan. And Azeris being a Turkic people, a Turkish people, for them they are like cousins, so to say, like brotherly countries. Now you will ask this question naturally that Pakistanis are mostly Punjabis, Sindhis, Multanis, Baluchistanis. They are not Turks. But for their imagination of what Pakistani nation is, they believe they're successors of the Mughal Empire, a Turco-Mongol empire. For they see their relationship with the Ak Konglu and the Kara Konglu that was ruling in South Asia once. So for them, even though the Turks living in Pakistan, ethnic Turks may be in a minority, but even the other ethnicities consider somewhere down the line that they're linked to this larger idea of Pan-Turanism or Pan-Turkism. And Ottoman Empire provides a very important element, a pillar in their history, because it linked Pan-Turkism with the idea of Pan-Islamism. So both the things linked together. It is something which is very important for Pakistan, and therefore the idea of the three Kardash or the three brothers emerges in the understanding and the ideology of Pakistan, that Pakistan as a nation is brotherly with Azerbaijan and Turkey. While this is the understanding of each nation. Pakistan believes we are the successors of the Mughal Empire and the Delhi Sultanate. Delhi Sultanate predominantly ruled by Turks, and Mughal Empire being a Turco-Mongol empire. You have the Azeris who claim that they are the successors of the Safavids. They believe that they were the Azeri people who went on to rule Iran for centuries. Like for them, Shah Ismail Khatai, there are metro stations, there are other institutions named after Shah Ismail Khatai in Azerbaijan, because they believe that the Azeri, because Azeris like Iranians are also Shia Muslims. They share the same religion. Then why is it that they're closer to Turkey? This is because of the idea of ethnicity, that we are Turks, and same goes in a way with Pakistan also. They are Sunni Muslims. They are not majority Shia. In fact, Shias in a way are persecuted in Pakistan, but they are very close to Azerbaijan and Turkey because of this idea that the three brothers are successors of three big empires. Turkey being of the Ottoman Empire, Azerbaijan being of the Safavid Empire, Ak Konglu, Kara Konglu, and the Pakistanis being the successors of the Delhi Sultanate and your Mughal Empire. And all the three empires conquered lands from other cultures, other ancient civilizations. Like I mentioned in my first point also, the first question that you asked, that in the case of the Delhi Sultanate, here was a big India or Bharat or whatever nomenclature or name you want to use, and that land became the Sultanate dominated by the Turks. Similarly, a Persian-speaking, Farsi-speaking Iranian area being dominated by Turkic nomads, and they creating their empire there, and also in different parts of in South Caucasus and Middle East. And similarly, in Ottoman Empire, you have the Hellenic area, the Greeks staying in what is now Asia Minor, which is now Anatolia, along with Eastern Anatolia would be mostly Armenians, and Western Anatolia would be mostly Greeks, and other groups living, also ethnicities living over there. And this area, after the Battle of Manzikert, Turks coming in and dominating over there, Alparslan defeating the king of the Byzantines, Romanos Diogenes, and taking control of that area. So this ideological foundation is very important for the reason why they will never recognize Armenia as a nation, because this is a brotherly relationship. This is not any other relationship. Second point is practical aspect. The practical aspect is this: that Pakistan is selling weapons to Azerbaijan. I mean, weapons developed with China, together developed. So, Pakistan Aeronautical Complex, along with Chengdu Aircraft Industrial Complex, developing aircrafts together and selling them to Azerbaijan. Maybe the first Nagorno-Karabakh war or the second Nagorno-Karabakh war, the 6-week war, it is believed and with ample proofs that Pakistani Mujahideen participated in the battle against Armenians for the idea of jihad, that you have to fight against the infidel. And like Aliyev always talks about, that Armenia is a barrier to create the grand Turkic and Islamic empire extending from Xinjiang all the way to the Balkans. In fact, if you just do some literature survey of Pakistani publications, journals, you will easily find people writing about the idea that the culture of Balkans all the way to Kashmir is very similar, and Armenia and India in a way are barriers to creating this larger cultural unity. Second thing, as I mentioned, is about the weapon sales, energy diplomacy. Azerbaijan is an energy-rich country, which is a big asset they have. Maybe getting Russia on their side, on European Union on their side, or Pakistan on their side. This is a very important reason for that. Third is the fact that you see that they have ports, they have access to the Caspian Sea, and the other side you have Kazakhstan, which is another Turkic nation. But things are more complicated than they appear. Pakistan has always believed in the idea that if Central Asia can be brought in closer to Pakistan because of the shared history and the Caspian Sea and then Azerbaijan, then all the way to Turkey, then it becomes a very big power block, so to say. In addition to that, Azerbaijan and Turkey have been constant supporters of Pakistan on the Kashmir issue. As I mentioned, the divide and rule policy, maybe Joseph Stalin in 1923 or maybe Cyril Ratcliffe in India. The problem of Kashmir, the problem of Nagorno-Karabakh have various similarities, and it has been seen that Azerbaijan and Turkey, like Erdogan when he came to Islamabad, he made it very clear that Kashmir is another Kanikale. So for him, Kashmir, for India, they see India as an occupying part, which is something very against the national interest of India. I'm speaking in a very realist point of view, from a realist standpoint. But that is how world, in a way, also operates. I mean, your economics also takes side when it comes to gets backtracked when it comes to national interests. And for them, Kashmir is something which is Pakistani territory in a way, or it should get independence or whatever. But it is against the Indian narrative, and therefore Pakistan, it's very, very essential for Pakistan, which is looking for global partners on this particular issue, to have these two brothers who have civilizational connect with them, like we have with Armenia. I mentioned about comparison of the negative comparison, divide and rule policy. Similarly, there are positive comparisons also. Like in the case of Armenia, you had a warrior, Androni Kozanian. If you have to compare Androni Kozanian with somebody, I will compare it with in pre-modern India, Shivaji, and in modern your Subhash Chandra Bose. If I have to compare Sogoman Talerian with anybody in Indian history, I'll compare him with Udham Singh. So, like the civilizational bond that Armenia and India share, similarly, there is this very strong civilizational bond between Pakistan, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. Even if we try by economic means, by other, because I have come across articles, people talking about the fact that Armenian government may try to reach out to Pakistan to, in a way, remove this hostility, but it is a very difficult task. It is a very, very difficult task because of both the reasons. There's no reason for Pakistan to leave Azerbaijan and Turkey and move towards Armenia or do anything else. So this is precisely the reason that Pakistan has always mentioned that Armenia is a fascist state, and also recognize the so-called Khojaly massacre and the fact that Armenians have created terrorism against Azeris and have massacred them. They have recognized Khojaly as a genocide, but they refuse to recognize the genocide of the Armenians. In fact, whenever anything comes up in international fora recognizing Armenian genocide, Pakistan is one of the countries that will stand with Turkey and say no, it should not be or even dealt with. So this is precisely the holistic reason for it.
Armenia joined the India-led International Solar Alliance, and as Arunansh pointed out, it is a energy-rich country. So tell me something more about the energy sector in Armenia.
Yes, it was a recent decision made by official Yerevan. So it underscores that Armenia has its commitment to sustainable energy development. So, we have atomic power plant, but from other side, we are trying to decrease import of energy into Armenia by developing green energy, trying to develop in this way. So we have opportunity to use the sun, which is in Armenia. So We have more than 2,500 hours of sun, and we should during the year. So we should also develop this direction. So now we are thinking to of the creation of another atomic power plant, but Armenia will go parallel to this by developing green energy. And in this case, so we have also some projects with our neighbors. So Iran is during the year periodically importing electro energy. So even we have this agreement, which I guess already should be renewed. So gas instead of electricity. So we are getting some gas from Iran and returning them electro energy. So the same with Georgia. So we are trying to develop some projects on pipelines, so which will allow to integrate our systems and which will allow us to exchange electro energy. So Georgia is now developing its own projects from Georgia under the Black Sea to Europe to export green energy to European Union, and European Union is also working and assisting Georgia in this project. So Azerbaijan is part of it, and they are trying to stop, not to allow Armenia to participate in this project. But I think Yerevan will continue to work with Brussels, with Tbilisi, to be part of this project, or maybe to initiate something else, which will balance it. And here we see that it's not only Armenia. So Armenia has to cooperate, and in this region, when we have two adversary countries, Azerbaijan and Turkey, which are still blocking and keeping us under blockade. So we have two other neighbors with whom we share neighborhoods. So we have good relations. So even with Georgia, last January 24, we signed the document on establishment of strategic partnership. So here I think we should go deeper, and even in the projects what we are now developing. So it will be a transport corridor from India via a region to Europe. So Georgia is integral part of it. So without Georgia, nothing will happen, because India and other countries are trying to escape entering Azerbaijan or Turkey. So in this case, Persian Gulf, so ports, Iranian ports, one of them, Jabahar, which is now functioning, and Indian company is the main contractor there, so which is not under the international sanctions. So we should develop this. Iranian side is developing infrastructures. So Yerevan is developing its own infrastructure project, so North-South corridor, which will allow to link Armenian-Iranian border with Georgian-Armenian border. So here we also can make some extra opportunities for trade and energy cooperation, and via Georgia to enter European market. It will be electro energy or goods. So it will allow us to create also extra opportunities in Armenia-Georgian proper, yes, bilateral relations. So to put some new projects, regional projects inside of these strategic new developing relations. And it will be broader so we are now trying to, as I know, to develop the X between Greece, France, Armenia, and India. So it's now in the sector of military technique cooperation, some expert dialogues, etc. So here maybe we will in the future we'll see other segments which will be part of such formats. So in some formats, Georgia will be part of this, and in the future, who knows, maybe we'll have opportunity to create interesting formats which will and each country which will be part of it will benefit from that, and in long-term perspective it will allow us to counterbalance geopolitical pressures or presence of this triangle between Turkish, Azerbaijani, Pakistani triangle in our region. So that's why we also need to develop relations with Georgia, where this triangle has its own influence, and try to develop positive, not against somebody, but just to create these strong economic ties, having background on some projects from energy to IT, agriculture, other sectors. So here, if we'll succeed in Armenia-India relations, we have still a lot of things to do, starting from the sector of from tourism and others. So we still don't have direct flights, and as I know, maybe in the near future, very near future, we'll have the first flights between India and Armenia. So everything which will put in our agenda will influence this region and will bring more cooperation, and maybe in the future, if geopolitics will not interfere in it, more stability and peace in our region.
Thank you, Johnny Melikyan, Arunansh Goswami, for this very interesting conversation. And it becomes clear that the two countries, India and Armenia, share a very strong relationship in economics, culture, military, and technology. And going forward, we can come together, the two nations. Thank you.
Thank you for invitation.
Thank you very much.